Guy Adam Schefter, I listened to his podcast on the way in this morning. I literally tweeted out last night, I'm like, I'm going to download his draft intel pod for the plane. I'm like, I can't wait. So I listened to it all morning this morning. So shout out to Shefty. I will provide nuggets that are his nuggets that I'll take credit for and give him credit for that I will provide during the course of the show. But there are a lot of juicy ones in that pod that Schefter just dropped last night. So go on the ESPN app, get the pod wherever podcasts are found, the Adam Schefter podcast with Ty Schmidt from the Pat McAfee Show. Okay. Press conferences all over the place yesterday around the NFL leading up to the draft. Omar Khan, Steelers general manager, had a presser and talked about everything being on the table in Pittsburgh at quarterback.
I know you guys are going to ask about the quarterback position, and I'll just tell you guys same thing. We discussed in Palm Beach a couple weeks ago. We go to camp with 4 quarterbacks. Right now we have 2 on the roster, and all options are on the table. And how we acquire those last 2, I assure you we'll have 4 when we get to Latrobe.
Okay, so it's on Palm Beach, not in. But anyway, I won't go crazy on that. Well, it's an island. I mean, it's in West Palm, but on Palm Beach. Anyway, and Mike Tomlin had this about Aaron Rodgers.
The Aaron Rodgers situation have any impact on your strategy or approach in the draft?
It does not.
Okay, I want to throw something out there to you guys. I've been thinking about something. Is there any chance, and just for background, we have been more critical, I think rightfully so, of the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason than maybe we ever have been in the history of their franchise.
Correct.
And we've been more critical of their head coach accepting all of this. Not blaming him for it, but accepting whatever's going on than we've ever been because we all think Mike Tomlin is a first ballot unanimous Hall of Famer. Is there any chance they got this all right? Is there any chance they're just going to sit there tomorrow night, 21's going to roll around, and Shedeur's going to be there, and we're going to end the Aaron Rodgers conversation with them, and we're just going to say, you know what? They kind of played this perfectly.
Can't say they've gotten it all right when you've had ownership talk about how they thought this would be resolved a lot sooner than it has. You can't have everything go all right where Mike Tomlin talks about how uncomfortable it is waiting throughout the course of the offseason this late in the calendar. So, no, I'm not going to say they played it all right because in a perfect world, they would have had Aaron Rodgers signed by now, but that hasn't happened. The reason why Aaron Rodgers isn't in Pittsburgh, it ain't because of the Steelers, it's because of Aaron Rodgers. So I can't say they're playing it right when the guy they prioritized all along is treating them like an option.
Yeah, maybe if they end up walking away from Thursday night with Shedeur Sanders, we will view this a little differently because I also would be very surprised if the Steelers get Shedeur Sanders in the first round of the draft, if that is still well, actually, I shouldn't say still because I don't know if it's a desirable option for Aaron Rodgers right now or if it's a backup plan. But I don't know if he would be keen to go there if a rookie quarterback with that type of hype around him and Shedeur Sanders is in Pittsburgh. That may take them out of the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes altogether. But to Cece's point, I can't say that they've played this all right because you still voluntarily put yourself firmly in the center of the circus. And that is the antithesis of what the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin have been for the entirety of the franchise's history and everything we know about him as a head coach. So for them to consider Aaron Rodgers at this stage in his career with everything that he brings with him and be in this holding pattern and put themselves in a position heading into Thursday where they are really desperate and where they do need to make a move, I still don't think that we're going to consider this a wholly successful offseason for them based on the drama that has been infiltrating the Steelers organization.
So if you're watching us on ESPN2, thank you. But we have on the screen, Mark, our TV producer, has on the screen, should Aaron Rodgers' uncertainty impact the Steelers' plan? And that's what we've been discussing, right? And then you add this to the conversation after we have the Omar Khan sound, after we have the Mike Tomlin sound. And then we have Mike Silver from The Athletic on the Scoop City podcast say that in his conversations with Davante Adams, quote, the second thing Davante told me was, I think Aaron wants someone to roll out the red carpet for him. This is what he's looking for. I'm not sure if he would consider the Steelers doing that right now. I'm not positive how Aaron perceives that or how the Steelers perceive that. Silver went on to say that it's not as literal as he wanted them to wine and dine him. It was more of he wants everything to be perfect in terms of the team to win the Super Bowl or be a Super Bowl contender, and maybe he doesn't think that about Pittsburgh.
Oh, my God.
Why? I guess here's the other part of this. Why are we just not ruling Pittsburgh out? None of us have, right? We haven't ruled Pittsburgh out.
No.
Why not? Smalls, you have been very consistent in saying until it's not Minnesota, I still think Minnesota is an option, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So why have we not ruled Pittsburgh out? And when we ask the question, should Aaron Rodgers' uncertainty impact the Steelers' plans, why have they not just said no?
Well, that I can't understand, why the Steelers just haven't taken control of the situation entirely and said, we've given you more than enough time to make your choice. We have given you our best offer. We have explained to you why we think that you should come here. If that's not good enough for you at this stage of the game, then so be it. We're going to go ahead and draft our future quarterback. We'll roll with Mason Rudolph until we think he's ready. And then that's how we're going to approach this. But I haven't taken them off the table because it seems up until this point on April 23rd that there is still mutual interest between both parties. Now, maybe the Steelers' interest is higher than Aaron Rodgers based on behavior. That's where we can go at this point. But I'm still not taking it off the table that he's going to want to play next season and that Pittsburgh is still his best option at this point.
Yeah, at this point in the calendar, there are only so many opportunities to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. There are only a certain amount of QB1 slots that are going to be up for grabs, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are the most clear and obvious one, right? We don't know who Tennessee's starting quarterback is going to be, but they have the first overall pick, and presumably they're going to draft Cam Ward.
Yep.
I mean, Minnesota already has J.J. McCarthy. They drafted him with the top 10 pick from a year ago. They haven't come out and said he's going to be QB1, but based on what they've done this offseason in that quarterback room or lack thereof, feels like that's going to be the case. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the only one that feels like an obvious spot where they need somebody to step in and play quarterback. They don't have anybody on the roster that started a full NFL season, not one. Like, I know people point to the Cleveland Browns and the uncertainty around their quarterback position. Think of Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, which you will, but both of those guys have several seasons where they've been the full-time starter in this league.
Wait a minute. To your point, you're 1,000% right. If anyone wants to compare the Steelers quarterback situation to the Browns or let's say the Giants, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. You could sit there and say Russell Wilson ain't good anymore. Russell Wilson is significantly better than anybody that the Steelers have right now. You could sit there and say it's Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. Well, Joe Flacco was not good. He was great for the Browns, won a Super Bowl, obviously, so did Russ, as we know. And Kenny Pickett, in games he started for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm not suggesting he's great. I am not. They were 15-10 in games he started.
He was the full-time starter on a team that went to the playoffs. Joe Flacco, full-time starter, won a Super Bowl, been to the playoffs several times, including in the last 3 years.
Russell Wilson, full-time starter once he was healthy for a team that went to the playoffs in Pittsburgh
This last year.
Justin Fields, oh, by the way, full-time starter until the other guy got healthy, Russell Wilson, and they were 4-2. Like, I don't think any of us are saying that the Steelers won't be like 9-8 with Mason Rudolph. We're not saying that.
No.
But he's not going to be the full-time starter, and they don't know who
He's not going to be the full-time starter because he's never been the full-time starter.
Correct.
And that's the team that drafted him.
Right. They know him better than anybody.
They know him better than anybody. So this notion that, we're comfortable rolling with Mason Rudolph, that's a sports lie. And it's okay. General managers and head coaches do it all the time, but that's not on the up and up. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to add to their quarterback room. They've already got two guys in there right now, Skylar Thompson and Mason Rudolph. I'm presuming that they will add a college free agent at some point after the draft. But the question mark becomes, are you going to draft somebody or are you going to sign Aaron Rodgers? And Mike Tomlin, I thought, had an interesting response when asked about the situation with Aaron Rodgers and saying, in general, that what you do in the draft could potentially affect your free agency after the draft. And so I wonder if the opportunity for Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh goes away, if Mike Tomlin and the Steelers decide they're going to draft a quarterback relatively early this year.
And I think it's a game of chicken in many ways. Here's what I think. Total guesstimation. Rodgers won't sign because he wants to see if they'll draft a quarterback. They're going to draft a quarterback because Rodgers won't sign. Then once he drafts a quarterback, he will then blame the quarterback drafting as the reason he's not going to Pittsburgh, when we all know he could have gone to Pittsburgh at any point over the last however many months.
At any point.
At any point. And he chose not to.
But here's the thing. If that's his hang-up for why he doesn't want to join your team, then he ain't your guy anyway.
Right. But I don't understand the Minnesota part because J.J. McCarthy is there too.
Yes, but there's questions about him coming back from an injury, and maybe he views it as a better football situation, as Devontae Adams outlined, the red carpet being more things are in place for him there. But I just wonder where he'll go then. What's his next play? If they're playing a game of chicken and the Steelers blink first and they go ahead and get their quarterback and Aaron Rodgers blames the situation for why he's not going there, okay, then what's your next move? Where are you going to go? Also, you're a 4-time MVP and a Super Bowl champion, and you're worried about a rookie quarterback?
That's, I mean, that is fair. All right, coming up, one NFL GM on the record thinks this draft is going to be